Can we just worship for a moment for the newness that he's given you? Can we give him glory in this room? Even if it's a little bit that's been changed. Can we just bask in gratitude and offer it to our Father? We just thank you, Lord. We just glorify you, Lord.
I'm getting on camera. That's what you mean. Thank you. Oh, and maybe the head. Thank you. Oh, you give good hugs. You give the best hugs. I push you back, okay? Man, oh man, oh man.
Where would we be? Where for you? Who would we be? If it weren't for you, how could we love? If it weren't for you, loving us first, what could we do? If it weren't for you, we give you glory. We give you glory.
Yeah, we give you glory, God, for this moment.
We give you glory.
I'm just going to sit here just for a moment. I don't know. I don't really do YouTube. I'm going to start doing more YouTube lives. I am Dr. Tori J., the founder and president of the Fatherless Generation Foundation. And since it is Domestic Violence Month, I have been meditating on some of the things I've experienced. And I want to talk about how we at the Fatherless Generation Foundation prevent domestic violence. So as you come in, just listen and meditate on this. Because everything I do is contrary to popular belief. And why I do this work is all because of the Most High God. I'm just going to share this on my pages. This is not always the easiest thing to do. Let's see.
Sopranos.
I think I am live. I might not be live. But we're going to cut that off because I don't want to do that. I'm trying to see if I can see where this is. Let me see. Let me get a link here. I pray that you all are doing great this afternoon. It's been a while, can't you tell? It's been a while since I have done these. But, and then I need to, what I need to do is actually purchase StreamYard again, or figure out what's the better stream service these days, because I've been using StreamYard for years. But I just wanted us to meditate a little bit on that word, because this is going to be a heavy conversation. As that message, who would we be? Where would we? How would we love? How, like, oh, I love that message. This young lady has, as they say, she got me by the throat. Her music has me by the throat. But it's all because of God. It's all because of Him. And as I have dealt with some of the craziest things over the last few years, that was tough. That was, I didn't think I was going to make it. And some of you didn't want me to make it. How about that? But I'm definitely here. I have made it. God is amazing. without question, I know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. As I come on here to talk about how the Fatherless Generation Foundation presents or prevents domestic violence, blah, blah. See, I haven't done this in a while. And I glasses because the last time I did a video, I was messing things up. You got 2 sets of glasses. I was messing words. The L's was rolling into each other, trying to figure it out. But I know this month is Cancer Awareness Month and Domestic Violence Month. Just praying for those who are fighting cancer, those who have survived cancer and are warriors. I definitely dealt with 2 diagnoses. February 4th of 2024, I was diagnosed with 2 types of cancer. Now, the beautiful part is I don't know if God healed me or if it was a misdiagnosis. Nonetheless, I went through 8 months of hell and lots of visits and lots of cash to determine that I didn't have cancer at all. These fibroids are doing what they do. But for those of you who have survived, kudos to you. Those of you who are fighting, I am praying for you. I have a friend who I am praying for right now. I called her and I saw the hospital bed and I was like, oh no. And I knew it was bad. So I acknowledge there are individuals who are fighting their cancer battle as we speak, as we are going. And my prayers are with you. And as we talk about domestic violence, I don't want to talk about it from a callous place. So as I always do, I will get up close and personal. And I want to talk to you about how we prevent it, because the obvious question that I always get when people find out what I do is, well, how do you know the men that you're reuniting the children with aren't abusive? And here is the thing. I don't know initially. And this is an excellent question and a crucial question for a nonprofit like the Fatherless Generation Foundation, as I and those who I have had volunteer and those who have worked for me, as I work with children, preventing domestic violence while promoting engagement does require and holistic now, I can tell you that I've had this approach from the beginning. There are things that we have always done as a wraparound to ensure that we are as holistic. When I say holistic, I mean fathers are not only just slapped with their children and like, oh, we've reunited somebody. No, majority of them, and I would say 65 to 70% of our fathers have to go through court. That means legal representation. Those who don't, there's mediation to enforce court orders that already are in existence, or conflict. Whew, my gosh, this is what we're talking about. So much conflict. I remember at one point there was a young lady who was on our board and had a master's in conflict resolution. People just don't know how to handle conflict at all. And so we would have individuals have to take a conflict resolution course or sit with that person. There are coaches that we work with. There are therapists that we work with that are literally on our team that work with the fathers to ensure that they're being coached through the challenges of their reunification, their parental alienation, any kind of conversation around domestic violence, whether they are the ones who have been accused of domestic violence or domestic violence has been perpetuated upon them. And don't get it twisted, that happens. That happens more times than you guys know, that sometimes domestic violence is perpetuated upon the father. While I pause, I want to pause for just a moment and say, I remember, and I began to remember this. I don't know why, but it was a few weeks ago. I remembered that there was a father that I was working with, and this was back in the day. I'm sure his information is in my CRM, but I would have to think about it. This was when things were on paper, where you could see pictures back in the day where I had stacks of papers, intake forms on the desk. And I would have to go back and look. But I remember he had a court order, and we were helping and assisting his co-parenting exchanges. And I remember gotten the children, and their drop off, the mother had been texting, and it was getting a little crazy during the text messages. And he was on the phone with me while he was dropping children off, because that's how intense it was. And he wasn't feeling it. On the phone, as he's pulling up the exchange, there are gunshots that ring out. Children are in the car. And this happens to be the mother's friend who is with her, and they are shooting. Children are in the car. I tell you, I've seen it. And as I said when I first came on here, part of the reason I played some of that music is this is going to be a heavy conversation. I always wanted to ensure that our holistic approach had certain guardrails to ensure that children were not being reunited with a father, or even put back into a home where domestic violence was being perpetuated upon anyone. And because there are some truths that we must face head on, TFGF has not been ignorant of the fact that domestic violence is real, especially in single mama households. Now, some of you may not like to hear that. That may not be, that ain't what you feeling, because, we have conversations. Would you rather be, with the man in the woods or the bear in the woods? And women are choosing the bear. The question is, maybe you're choosing the wrong man to be in the woods with. That becomes part of the question. I am going to go through some statistics, because as I say these things, some of you will get offended, and then you'll say, well, who are these statistics from, and blah, blah, blah. Well, I am focusing on the Department of Health and Children Services, DHS, Department of Health and Human Services, I'm sorry, and some of their reports. I even have my favorite book here. I am focusing, and I have some things pulled up because I want to even define domestic violence. Some of us may not know what that means. So I want to define domestic violence in the midst of having this conversation with you, and read some statistics, because we don't seem to know. And even while I said, her new boyfriend, did you know that children raised by single mothers have a statistically higher risk of being abused by a mother's boyfriend or stepfather? As I know we all want to celebrate, and we do celebrate stepfathers who are stepping up and stepping in to help raise children. We celebrate that, but we also have to face the fact that children are at a higher risk and a higher rate of being abused in that situation. They say in these different studies that this is linked to factors like the absence of a genetic relationship, the caregiver's perceived role, and the potential rival with the child. That's interesting to me. Research suggests that the presence of unrelated males in the home is a significant risk factor on its own. So when we're asking the question that I said that I'm always asked when I'm doing this work, well, how do we know, or how do you know that you're not reuniting these children with a father who's going to abuse them? As I said, I don't know. I don't know, and I don't reunite them until I know. How about that? My holistic approach is something that I've always been proud of because of the guardrails that I've put in place. We've never had a child reunited with a father who possessed domestic violence charges. We've never done that. I've always been in a position where I've asked significant and specific questions during our intake process. I do a national background check on all fathers if they choose to sign up in my program. There is a background check, a national background check that is done to ensure that there are no domestic violence charges, because people can move from state to state. And if I do a local state background check, it may not come up. But if I do a national background check, because I know someone might be in Georgia working on a case, or I'm working on a case in Georgia, but they've lived in Montana, I need to do a national. I need to make sure, and not just in Montana, I need to make sure that a dad is not doing something or accused of doing something that he has not shared with me. And here's the other part. I've done this so long, I trust my instincts, which sometimes leads me to calling the ex-girlfriend or the ex-wife to get her side of the story. Do I always do that? No, but I've learned over the years to do that majority of the time. I'm no longer going to wait. I'm no longer going to try to figure it out. And I have another situation that I won't get into, but there is another instinctual experience that I have when I'm on the phone or I'm encountering a father who's abusive. When I started this work, I can be honest with you and say I didn't even consider domestic violence in the way that I've had to consider it now. Clearly, I thought about it because I put guardrails in place. But the level in which I look at it now is not the same as when I started. When I started, I was all bushy-eyed, bright-eyed, excited about doing this work. But about 3 years, 4 years maybe in, I was like, yeah, we need to add a few things, because I'm getting these alerts, and I need to ask certain questions. And no longer do I just ask questions. There's an assessment that I'm doing, just so you know. During my intake, I have now implemented a mental health assessment during my call. I'm just asking questions. Dads don't always know. Now you know. When I'm asking you specific questions, those questions are because I am assessing, have you had mental health episodes? Have you ever been abusive to anyone? Did you experience abuse growing up? See, we're repeating patterns. And I've said this on lives over and over and over again. If you go back to my video, especially Healing Tuesdays, we're repeating patterns. And there are vows that we make to ourselves and say, I will never be abusive, and I will never be in a domestic violence situation, and I will never. But what's happened is you have been around it. It is played out in your life. And therefore, because of all of those things, you may repeat some habits that you didn't even know were in you. You didn't even know existed. And how do I say this? Those patterns and behaviors, they require you to do the work, but they first require you to acknowledge that it was a problem. I can tell you, I saw domestic violence in my fatherless home growing up. Yeah, I saw it. It wasn't my father. Not that my father was perfect. I don't know. I don't believe that was ever a part of his journey. He had other things in his journey, but I don't think that was part of his journey. But I did witness it from my brother's father towards my mother, and my mother had another boyfriend. And I remember being 15 concerning this one boyfriend, and I was going to go kick his butt because he had messed with my mama that day and humiliated her for whatever reason. And she came back and she was frazzled and crying. And I just was like, nah, I was 15 years old, and I walked out the door, and I was going to handle him, but he was not where he was when he did what he did. And so because he had left, I don't know who was spared, him or me. But that's what also happens. Children are defending their mothers in the midst. And because they're defending their mothers, we don't know how that's going to manifest in our adult lives. And then we grow up and we become violent or fighters in our own situations. I remember one of the little boys in our peer groups, and this was actually at the Brookhaven Boys and Girls Club at the time. They've now moved around the corner from there. But I remember we were talking about just our parents and feelings that we had. And that particular weekend, coming off of that weekend, we were in our group, and he said, I had to pull my mommy and daddy off of each other this weekend. And he was devastated. At the time, he was probably 8 or 9. See, children are encountering these things. And that was his daddy. That was his daddy. We're not going to sit here and say that only, and let me clean this up. I am not by any means saying that domestic violence only happens in single parent homes when it's the stepfather or the boyfriend. We know that that happens in, let me read some of my statistics here. We know that it happens in 2-parent households, but it is less likely. The risks are, I want to go back. Hold on. Let me read some of these. And this is important. This goes into what I was saying. 45 out of 1,000 of these children, here it is. Even children living with both biological parents who are cohabiting, rather than married, that's wild, had more than double the risk of domestic violence. Cohabiting. Interesting. I'm looking at that in a way because are they trying to say that marriage is the factor? Is marriage the fact? Because it said had more than double the risk of domestic violence exposure as those with married births. Wow, they're saying marriage is the factor. 45 to 1,000 of these children had witnessed family fights that became physical. Note also that a child's family structure was a better predictor of witnessing family violence than was her parents' education, family income, poverty status, or race. So your family structure is the predictor. Experiencing family violence is stressful for children, undercuts their respect and admiration for parents who engage in abusive behavior, and is associated with increased rates of emotional and behavioral problems at home and in school. So here we are. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen in married relationships, but there are key factors and key. I'm sorry. I read this, but I skimmed it because I'd read this before. But here's the thing. I didn't realize that it said marriage was the factor. Like you can cohabit and hang out with and live with. But it still doubles the risk factor. So a father could still be the issue in that moment. That's interesting. And we're doing a whole lot of cohabiting. Interesting. I'm gonna leave that. I'm gonna ponder on that for a moment. Heavy, heavy, heavy conversation. Because I'm thinking about a few things. Oh, I did say I wanted to define domestic violence. Sorry. What did they call it? Relationship violence. Relationship violence is when one or both people in a relationship or in a past relationship are abusive, controlling, or aggressive towards the other person. Relationship violence can happen in a serious or casual relationship, and it can take place in a person, in person or online. Ooh, oh, I got a conversation for you. Sometimes both partners act in abusive or controlling ways. Anyone, no matter their gender, age, or sexual identity, can experience relationship violence. Let's break down what these are. That's physical violence, like pushing, hitting, or throwing things. Sexual violence, like forcing or trying to force someone to do something sexual. Threats of physical or sexual violence, including threatening to hurt another person or a pet. Oh, excuse me. Emotional abuse, like embarrassing a partner, keeping them away from family and friends, or speaking or yelling in a way that frightens them or puts them down. Financial abuse, like taking a partner's money, controlling how they spend money, or not giving them money for necessary expenses. Stalking, like watching or following a partner, or repeatedly calling, texting, emailing, commenting on social media, and even when they don't even respond. These are just this is defining what it looks like to be in a domestic violence situation. Okay, I'm even going to close that one. So I found something in my favorite book. I found something, and I don't know if y'all gonna like what I found. This is the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, of their report on child maltreatment reinforces this counterintuitive picture. And there are 4 starter facts. Fact number 1, each year about 350 parents in the U.S. kill one or more of their children. Almost 2/3 of the parents who killed their children are mothers. That's tough. Almost 2/3 of the children between 8 and 15 who are killed by their parents are boys. Overall, when it comes to children being killed, it is most likely the mother killing the son. Children are 88% more likely to be seriously injured from child abuse or neglect by their mothers than by their fathers. Children are more than twice as likely to be victims of neglect by their mothers than by their fathers. Boys who are abused are 24% more likely to suffer serious injuries than girls who are abused. I need to breathe on that. I know you want to say, well, what were they studying and what were they? Here's the other part, because I know you guys are thinking this. What about sexual abuse? What about sexual abuse? We often think sexual abuse is basically father-daughter phenomena. However, sexual abuse of daughters is most often a result of an absentee father, a cool and distant mother, and or a stepfather or live-in boyfriend of a single mother. Even by the current broad definitions of abuse, only 2 to 3% of daughters growing up with their biological fathers have been abused by them. So let's have that conversation. There's a lot here to unpack, only in a few sentences. It says sexual abuse of daughters is most often a result of an absentee father. So when a dad isn't around and then he picks the child up, and that's why some women are like, I don't want him with the child because I don't trust him. But I would add here and question. And I'm pausing a lot. That's what I do in my life now. I think through things a little bit more. And I don't have to rush the conversation. I would think that when a father is disconnected in an absentee kind of way from their child, it would open the door for something like this. I get that you think they're not safe, fine. But the more that a dad, because it's talking about an absentee father, no connection. And in some ways that can happen also in the home, right? Because dads don't always have a connection with their child when they're in the home with them. It says a cool and distant mother. That means the mother's disconnected. And or a stepfather or live-in boyfriend of a single mom. And then it tells us only 2 to 3% of daughters growing up with their biological fathers have been abused by them. So time by lead parent time by the father because the mother was often living with a stepfather and been abused by them. So going back to how do we prevent this? We pay attention about the households the children are in. We ask about the father's background in the household he was growing up in. There's a lot of background questions that I'm asking in the midst of intake. And anyone who's answering the phone is now trained to ask those questions. Once again, there's a script. You know, we were talking about domestic violence is about control. And I don't want you to think that I have not had men come through my program or attempt to come through my program, get on the verge of being reunited, and then you discover. Let's call one guy Mike. Yeah, you know who you are, running up bills, $15,000 worth of fees and acting like you didn't do it, then threatening me on social media. Wild. He married a lady who was pregnant. And in the midst of that, he ensured that the biological father had no contact with the child. Although his story was that he had had a child with a woman who was married, and that father pushed him out, and then relationship with him, he repeats this pattern, and it's that he's going to up a $15,000 bill, and it's my fault. I say it all the time. It's my fault, and I still have to take care of that bill because it's what I signed on to do. Dumb me, thinking, I don't even know what I was thinking, but at the time, it was presented in a certain way, and I later saw the control in it. Oh, I want the bed. Oh, the printer. Like you're fighting over, like, not the custody as much as it was more about control. And it was eventually I mean, he'd already racked up a bill. I'm calling that I can't take while I'm dealing with and it was just wild. And I realized this is trying to control the other party. She wanted his name off the birth certificate. That was fair. I didn't. Watched his behavior, and as a woman, he was doing a lot. He was doing a lot. I mean, a lot. So there was this control factor. That is a part of abuse. I also had the gentleman who's the star on a current news report. Ken, we'll call him. Yeah, I'm calling y'all out tonight because this is why they're on these reports. This is why you're telling these stories, because the discovery of who you actually were and you didn't get past me is what has you in a flux. And so it has you, making statements that just aren't true. Violent. He was charismatic. He seemed compassionate concerning his children. But then when things weren't going his way, he got verbally abusive, and not only threatened me, as I said in another video, he threatened another client who was on a coaching call, like threats. I'm a goon. So it was this compassionate individual, but I also recognized that it was chaotic too. One of the reasons that his bill was so high, because we don't charge dads $3,500 for anything. His bill was high because he had temporary protection order against him at the time. And we were trying to decipher those allegations. Were they true or were they not true? And when you're working with someone who has domestic violence allegations, you have to figure out, is this the silver bullet? Oh, let me define silver bullet. Silver bullet is when mothers claim domestic violence in order to ensure that the dad has no access, no time with the child. So there's a part of my work that requires me to have to decipher, is this real or is it false? And I can tell you 100% of the time, I have been able to make it all the way up until and find out if they are abusive or if it's just an allegation. The saddest part is, ladies who do this, you make it really hard on the women who are experiencing domestic violence, because it is stated that 70% of domestic violence allegations that are made during a custody divorce battle are false. I will never forget the time when the woman, she accused my client. She accused him of threatening his daughter. And I will never forget reading her motion in court was written on one of the forms in pencil. And I read this form and she was saying, he threatened our daughter that if she told that he took her to the family reunion, he would cut off her TTs and cut out her vagina. And as I'm doing intake, talking to this person, I didn't feel that about him. I felt something was off about the allegations. Some things are instinctual. And I just was like, well, as we go through, guardrails are in place to witness. And I remember when we got to, I think it was the first or the second court hearing, this mother was already in a place where she was like, I'll drop those charges if you give me more child support. When we're talking about how the Fatherless Generation Foundation, Inc. prevents domestic violence, one of the ways we do that is we take our time in cases and we look at each piece. And when a mother does that, you make it really hard for other cases that we have when they really are abusive. So then I'm asking, okay, let me discern, let me pick this apart, let me pray over this, let me think it through, let me continue to read all of the case documents, let me see what this is about. Some of you are really experiencing domestic violence, and some of you are not. Some of you are not. Some of you are creating false allegations that then you put the child in a dark space. You put the child in a place and space where they think their dad is abusive. I remember watching that Oprah Winfrey. No, it was Iyanla Vanzant, sorry, where the father was accused of sexually abusing all of his daughters, and then it came out that he did not. And they did the lie detector and found out that he did not. And then the mother, he was like, I knew it wasn't true. And the daughters was like, thank God. But they had heard it so much. There was a little thought, maybe, why would our mothers lie? Why would our mother lie to us? And when it came out that he didn't, he was like, oh, thank God. And then we found out that she was being deceptive. And instead of apologizing, the mother said, well, why didn't you fight harder for them? See, ladies, as I said earlier, there are times when we are repeating habits and patterns and behaviors that we picked up along the way in our homes and in our childhood. Manipulation, control. Why didn't you fight harder? Why did you put all of that in his way? So now you're saying that these girls have been sexually abused by their father, and I can't imagine how that's impacted them in their lives. That their mother would say that, which out of the 3 girls, you telling me none of them believed it? And I remember hearing one of them say, oh, thank God. What does that mean? She thought maybe. Just maybe. Maybe. So I'm sharing that to say we have a problem on both sides, but we seem to make it solely about men. We seem to make it only about men. Domestic violence is not gender specific. It's just not. I have a gentleman that I have spoken to on several occasions, and I know there's a lady doing research on men who are experiencing domestic violence. And the numbers are not what you all think. The numbers are almost neck and neck. And also depending on the state. And then depending on the weapon. Oh, they can go to the websites. They can break it down to what kind of weapons are being used. Knives, guns, women who use knives over men or women over, like, it's wild. This work is intense and this work is not easy. And so for people who are trying to come from me, you need to go sit down somewhere, because I promise you, you can't do it. You cannot do this. And while you are trying to talk and put yourself on a news report, I am telling you, I've got everything I need to back this up. I've got everything I need to sue and to get done what I need to get done. And so as I'm sitting here talking about how the Fatherless Generation Foundation presents domestic violence during Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I need you to know that there are plenty of things that I'm doing in my organization to ensure that I don't reunite. When that gentleman on the news report says, well, she didn't reunite me, I sure didn't. Because the moment you made a threat to me, and I've already known that you have a TPO, now I'm prone to believe that threat that you made with her is legit. And so God bless you and see you later. I said to you before, I have never reunited a fatherless child with a biological father who is abusive. Not one time out of the 8,406 that I've now done. I've not one. Why? Because somehow they always show their colors. They always manifest right before. Let's call him Ricky. Oh yeah, that's his name. He has stalked me. He's a psychopath. You hear me? Domestic violence charges, required to do domestic violence classes, had supervised visitation. And this was one of my first. And I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, y'all. I was trying. I was really trying. Oh, somebody jumped on. I don't even know where I'm live. I have no idea where I'm even live. So I don't know who you are. Could be Ricky for all I know. He did send me an email the other day. I'm going to talk about that for a moment, or in a moment. But Ricky has a situation where he comes to me. I have a court order. And I'm just trying to, get my court order moving. He had supervised visitation, but the mother was no longer bringing the child or to the supervised visitation because the individuals who were supposed to do the supervised visitation decided that they weren't going to do it. And I thought, oh, why is that? And he said, no. There was something happening. And so because there was something happening, but they're my family members and there's 3 of them and they will definitely sign up to do it. He gave me all of their phone numbers, y'all. All of the phone numbers. And so in me getting all of the phone numbers, I called all of them to see if they would be willing to be the supervised visitation individual to help him in his case. And they said, absolutely not, all 3 of them. And at the time, I didn't ask any more questions. They said no, I didn't want to pry too much. Now I want to know why. Now I know why. I ain't even gonna lie to you. I know why. Because he is violent. His was not a silver bullet. He's a violent individual. He has stalked me for 8-9 years now. Anything anybody posts about me, a picture of me, they're friends with me on social media. He has inboxed every friend I've had on Facebook. He has gone through every friend or follower on social media and inboxed them. Every single thing. This person is a psycho. And I am so grateful. Right before I passed him on to a specific attorney, right before I passed her the money, I had talked to the mama. I did. Now, mind you, this is what's crazy. I can show you a court case, and you can go to Fulton County and see that I have filed a actual court case against him. This man has called me everything under the sun. even called me an infertile something. I don't know. Child, nobody want to be a baby mama. I have made that decision to ensure that I was nobody's baby mama. Okay? Wild. Do I want to be someone's mother? Yes, but I was not going to do it under the same circumstances by which you made somebody a mother. Wasn't going to do it. And so when I think about Ricky's case, we even had a private investigator. Ricky for years said he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. And I said he did. And when I showed proof, he then contacted the private investigator and said, oh, she's taking everybody's money. She's scamming people using your name. It's gotten crazy. And y'all believe this lunatic. Y'all believe this crazy person. Go look up his files in Maryland. Go, it's public record. It's public record. He beat his ex-wife inch from her life. Where's my phone? He beat her. I even went to the school board. How dare you guys not let this man execute his custody order? Let me tell you, this was when I first, and I've done a background check, but I knew that he had had charges, but he was willing to do supervised visitation. He had taken the courses. He had taken the courses. So I thought, let's just work with it. We'll work with him. We're a holistic approach. He was my first where I determined that was not going to work. That was not going to be a good idea. And he had me all up in the courts, or in the Gwinnett County School Board. And once I finished testifying, I didn't specifically talk about him. I talked about them executing custody orders within their county and doing it properly, ensuring that dads had access to their children's school records and access to their children during school because their custody order required it. I remember getting pulled aside by one of the administrators, and they asked me like what specifics of the case and that they would investigate it. And do you know, it later came back that the reason that he was not allowed at the school is because he used his current wife, her last name, as a way to try to kidnap the child from school. See, y'all play too much. A child, by God's grace, is never going to be reunited with an abusive father on my watch. Never. How do we prevent that? I'm going to keep repeating it. We have guardrails in place. We ensure that there are national background checks taking place. We are asking certain questions. We are doing a mental health assessment during our intake process. And I'm trusting my instincts. If domestic violence comes up anywhere in the conversation, I'm ensuring that I'm the person looking after that case. This person, Mr. Ricky, when I tell you I've never in my life dealt with anything like this, anything. I want to make sure that dads have another way that we ensure is you're going to have a coach and a counselor, therapist, licensed therapist, which I am not. Yeah, I tried to say that in the news report. Well, people may think, no, I have them who they work with us. Tiffany is amazing. Absolutely remarkable individual. She works with majority dads. Alicia, remarkable, loves working with fathers, did her master's research, or no, her PhD research on fatherlessness. And there are two others, Dr. Johnson, and then I have a male, Dr. James. You all just don't get to see them in the forefront because I don't trust you all. You don't need to see them in the forefront. You get to see this lovely face. And people who work with me, they know who they are. Shout out to Darren who brought Tiffany to me. She was actually his counselor because he had surrounded himself properly and built up his own team. And we were using her during his coaching call on, okay, let's talk about how we can help Darren get to the next place. And there were times when Dr. Tiffany and I would be talking, and it would be perfect for all the other fathers. It would be perfect. So I want you guys to hear, this is Ricky's ex-wife. Hold on.
You said he tried to do what? He tried to kill me. He used to beat me a lot.
He said, I've never abused her, but they made me go through all of this stuff. I learned that he really did. So that's why you haven't gotten anybody trying to serve you. She was avoiding service. Because I learned this. So he tried to kill you? And what do you mean?
He used to beat me in the morning, in the day, and at night. I could not, we had a car. He had a car. So he would be downtown. And when he came home, he would touch the hood of the car. And if that car was warm,
wait a minute. If you went anywhere and he would touch it, and if you
he walked in from his job, he parked right next to the car, felt the car, and if that car was warm, if I had to go anywhere, I would try to go really early in the morning when he put on and he left. He beat me so bad one particular night. I went to Prince George's County. I ran to Prince George's County. I was able to get away. And I went to the county. I went to phone. And the judges, they'll tell us where he is. He's at 10 years. I don't know where he is. He left the house.
Let me tell you guys, I don't play those games. And I have an hour-long conversation with her. 1 hour. We were trying to serve her through our process server, our private investigator, who actually used to do our skip tracing until Mr. Ricky Pleasant convinced him of something. I don't even know how. Oh, I'm sorry, I said your last name. Oh, well. Go look him up in Prince George County, Maryland. Go look him up. I do not care. He's been all over social media slandering, so it's fine. Go look him up. Abusive. And he's abused me. Even there were times when he'd be on the phone talking crazy to me, and I'm like, hold on, I'm done. I'm done working with you. He'd call back and apologize, and I would take him back. Eventually, I stopped because I realized what was happening. I realized he was abusive. That lady tells me another story where she's trying to date, and she's on a dating app, and somehow she goes on a date, and it's his cousin sitting across from her. That wasn't an accident. They found her on that dating site. I am telling you all, how the Fatherless Generation Foundation prevents domestic violence is we ensure that we have guardrails in place. And if we get someone who could possibly be someone who's abusive, we're walking this thing slowly. We're dotting I's and crossing T's. And when I'm talking to you about Ricky has now, I don't know if he's still abusing her. I have not talked to her since that particular, no, we were texting afterwards. She was very afraid for her life. I have text messages from this woman. She doesn't want to file anything. She tried to file harassment, but she couldn't serve him. And trust me, I'm having issues serving him too. There are things that you guys have to know. And this person is working behind the scenes. I don't know if he got a job, I don't have no job, but he got plenty of time to sit on social media. And I am being abused. An abuser that I refuse to work with, refuse to reunite his child. And now the abuser is him behind the scenes creating this. You all believe it. How wild is that? This man has abused me in ways that I've never been in a physical abuse situation that I can think of. And that can get wafty, especially now that I'm newly divorced. But maybe you all are on. This could be you guys on. I don't even know. I would love to see who's on. I just don't know what page this is actually live on. I don't know. I was trying to see, but I don't know. But as I'm on here talking, let's see. Let's see if I can see. I thought it was on YouTube. Let me see. I don't even see it. But I talked earlier about the different the definitions of domestic violence. I talked earlier about the guardrails and the things that we put in place. I also talked earlier about the statistics surrounding this. And I don't know if you all are aware. I just don't know if we're aware, because we do celebrate stepfathers. I'm not trying not to celebrate stepfathers, but I want you to be clear that in the midst of celebrating them, know that children are more likely to be abused by their stepfathers than they are their biological fathers. And then what I read here, and I'm going to do this before I get off because I'm almost been here an hour. What I read here in my lovely book, Dr. Warren Farrell, Father and Child Reuniting. Boys are more likely to be killed by their mothers. That was tough. Than girls. 24% more likely to suffer serious injuries than girls who were abused. Children are 88% more likely to be seriously injured from child abuse or neglect by their mothers than their fathers. I also had a thing up here a moment ago where it talked about, here it is. When biological parents are not married, but just cohabiting, children are double the risk of domestic violence exposure than those with married parents. These are statistics. And I know people question, like, well, where do they come from? I think we can do that, but I don't think it's productive or solution driven. And one thing that I am, even as I've gone through for the last 6 months or so, am I going to keep this going? Am I going to close this door? This work is my legacy. And it's my legacy because I did grow up in a fatherless home. I did see domestic violence from a boyfriend who was cohabiting with my mother. I did see that. And I'm just thinking through my own. Sometimes when I'm talking, it's like, oh yeah, I did experience that. That's part of my fatherless journey. It's part of what I've experienced. And I can say that even in my marriage, I experienced some of the pushing, shoving, throwing, banging, slamming cabinets. And I was like, whoa, what's that? That angry little boy would show up and scare the daylights out of me. It would scare the daylights out of me. That's a whole other conversation. I'm still healing, so I don't know if I'm ready to have that conversation. But I was saying a moment ago, I don't think I've ever been. And then it's like, well, yes, you have, based on the definitions. Oof, child, help us in every kind of way. But one thing I am proud of is that I have not, and I will continue to add more and more guardrails to ensure that I don't, so that when Domestic Violence Awareness Month comes around, I can still celebrate and say that I have never reunited a fatherless child with a dad who's abusive and has abused them, or later they were harmed or killed. I am grateful that Ricky never got reunited with his child through me, and he still has not been reunited with his son. Based on the conversation that I had with Mama, that son is grown and is waiting for a moment to handle whatever he needs to handle. Now, that she could be totally off when she said that to me. I don't know. But what I am saying is Ricky is one of the most abusive individuals that I've ever encountered in my entire life. And I have enough proof to prove it. And he is ensured that he will abuse me because he can't take accountability for what he's done and what he's doing. He cannot. He will continue to play the facade. I even heard that Mr. Eric Carroll was going to have him on to tell about who Tory is. You can come tell who Dr. Tory J is all you want to. Because like I said, I have the proof. I have an hour-long conversation with this woman, and I have text messages from her. And I will subpoena her any day if I needed to. And I wouldn't even want to put her in that situation because I don't want her to have to encounter him ever again in her life if she doesn't want to. I don't want to do that. But I'm telling you, I have been face to face with individuals, and it's not many. That's the other part. Out of 8,000 plus that I've actually done reunification with, people that I just randomly, individuals that talk through, coach through certain situations. I'm not even talking about them. I would tell you that there's probably 20 to 25. 25 is pushing it that I've experienced that were abusive in this work. In the 17 years, we're celebrating 17 years in business. And this has not gone the way that I've wanted it to go. There are a lot of things being put in place now to ensure that when I pass this on, it will be passed properly, because the battles and the fights, y'all think Oh, and she didn't get this done, and she didn't do this. This is called spiritual warfare. Don't be dumb. Don't be stupid, believing what you read and what you see. Don't be stupid. Doing this work has cost me spiritually as well. Financially, oh, where'd she get her money from? I do other things. I'm an expert witness in cases that costs. I'm not cheap. I'm not free. Okay? Trying to figure out where I get my money from. How dare you? I'm sorry. Let me focus on what I'm talking about, because I can't give too much energy to that. But the only reason it's getting a little bit of energy is because this Ricky person is behind it. And you guys have allowed an abusive individual to then now use this moment to abuse me even further. That's wild. That's so wild to me. For years, I've watched this individual send inboxes to every person I know. Do you know that this person found my mother on social media and told her he knew where she lived? You guys gotta be kidding me. Domestic violence is very real. And I am so grateful that I was not the person who reunited this person with his child and forced that mother to have to be face to face with this person, this psychopath. I am so grateful that I did not. It's clearly convincing. Interesting. I don't know how. You must not have any discernment. Yeah. Oof. I'm going to finish with this by saying there are some new components that the Fatherless Generation Foundation will implement. One of the things that I had done for years was at the end of reunification, I would send fathers through a fatherhood program that was not part of the Fatherless Generation Foundation. Well, we are now instituting and implementing our own fatherhood program that I have curated. And through that curation, we will now stick with these fathers for 6 months on our end. Normally, we would pass them along to another program, and we would witness through that program how well they did. Now they're going to stick with us. Some of the things that we're going to teach them and talk about is, promoting healthy masculinity and emotional literacy. We're going to talk about anything integrating domestic violence awareness into our programming. That's going to be there. I am already working with domestic violence experts and organizations concerning partnerships. We're screening, we're putting screening and accountability measures in place. Some of that's already there. Some of that's already implemented when it comes to intake assessments, screening for, violence or substance abuse or mental health. We've even had dads who were dealing with substance abuse found, we didn't find, the mother found a substance abuse facility, recovery facility, sent the dad there. Dad did not complete it, so we didn't do a reunification in that situation. We're going to create behavioral agreements that has to be put in place. Has to be. I've always kept most of my father's stuff confidential, but when these individuals that I'm referring to have made it very public, made it very much so, made their driving force to try to take me out and take me down, child. Oh God, and he is walking with me. I have always been a place where dads can come for group therapy, group conversations, peer group types of things. So we've always given we've always given fathers resources and not just rules. A lot of times dads are going through programs that are just giving them rules. I've worked in employment, individual, mental health counseling is always a part of it. Anger management programs, or what are called conflict resolution programs. We do need to create housing resources for fathers, because sometimes that is a situation. I want to provide more peer mentorship for men who are coming out of harmful patterns. I do want to do that. That is something that I will definitely implement, looking for peer-to-peer mentors, and then educating on not only co-parenting, but collaborative parenting and parallel parenting, and being respectful in relationships. I know some people say, oh, well, you got to respect mom. Sometimes the mother's not respectful, and that gets kind of difficult. And I get it. I've seen the guy on Instagram. He's from the UK. He does some amazing things. But I've also worked with situations where I'm like, I don't know. So, yeah, our staff and volunteers, as I now am moving forward, I've taken a breath for about a year and a half. Definitely over the last, when did I hire those people? I hired those people about a year ago. That was wild. Tara was amazing. It was that other chick. How you gonna be Black and racist? How? Girl, did you tell your church who you are? Oof. Anyway, I believe in people, you guys. I believe in people. I do. And I trust who God says about people, and what God says about people, who he says they are. Sometimes they don't live up to those expectations. So as I finish up, I've gone over my time. How does the Fatherless Generation Foundation prevent domestic violence? We put guardrails in place. We are answering a crucial and critical question as to how, as an organization that works with, fathers and their children, how do we prevent domestic violence while promoting father engagement? And that requires us to be proactive, education-based, trauma-informed, which I am a certified trauma-informed healing coach, and have a holistic approach. We do this because we do not walk away from the truth, and the facts are that domestic violence does exist in fatherless homes, that children are more likely to be in a domestic violence situation, experience it, witness it, when they're in a single parent home. That's factual. And because we have to acknowledge those facts and live with them, then we move accordingly. I hope that you all will watch this video, continue to listen, support us, cheer us on, and I will do some other videos coming soon. All right, I'm Dr. Tori J. I'm the founder and president of the Fatherless Generation Foundation. Thank you for jumping on with me tonight. All right, we'll talk soon.